everyone. Look at this. This is for the first time I start the show with a co-host. Hey, Ben, how you doing?
Doing good. Keeping busy. How's things there?
Oh, we're doing good. I'm done work for the week, and it's like the weekend is here. Time to drink.
There you go.
Actually, I can't. I got shit to do this weekend. But anyway, we're gonna drink a little bit tonight. We're gonna have fun. We're gonna field your questions. But we do have rules, and I mean, I just figured Ben's on here not as a guest tonight, but basically he's hanging out, and he's going to answer some of your questions too. That way, it takes a little bit of shit off of me. You can dump your shit and fucked up questions onto him tonight.
Here to carry your load, buddy.
Okay. Oh my God, it starts already. All right. So basically, I'm going to have to change. I didn't have a rules screen set up with a guest, but I'm just going to throw it up here. Oh, now I hear an echo. It should go away in a second, though. Rule number 1. Oh, I hear him bad now. Hopefully that goes. Oh, where'd he go? He left. Oh, I could have just muted him. All right. So I'm going to go through the rules anyway. The rule number 1 is you are welcome to ask questions, and tonight is no different. Ask away. But remember that I don't know everything, and that's rule number 2. Wow, him dropping out just totally screwed my groove. But oh my God, let me get back on track here. Rule number 2 is that I don't know everything, and the guest doesn't know everything, so that could be a problem too. But we'll write it down, and we'll learn. We'll learn together. We'll figure it out. We'll look it up if we can, or I'll write it down for later. Oh, he's back. Let's see if he comes back in. Is he there?
I'm here.
Oh, I can't see you.
Yeah, well, I'm working on it. I'm trying to fix your show, man.
Fix my show. You're fucking my show up.
Give me a minute. Keep doing whatever it is you do.
This is what happens when you have amateurs on your show. All right, rule number 3 is the Patrick Swayze rule. So you can be in the chat room, you can debate, you can discuss, you can agree or disagree, whatever, just be nice about it. That's what I ask for. Just be nice. If you're mean and start cursing and calling names and bullshit like that, I'm going to try and pay attention. Donna's not here. She's on vacation still, so I'm operating everything by myself. But if I take notice or everyone starts letting me know, I will boot your ass. Oh my goodness, he's really fucking up. Rule number 4 is if you have a question, please do me a favor and put a Q in front of it. That helps me out, especially tonight because I'm on my own, to pick out the questions from the comments and from you guys going back and forth. So I love the discussion you guys have in the chat room. It's really, really cool. And I love the debate that goes on. So it's really fun. And then rule number 5 is my favorite one, which is drink up. There you go. And Ben is already screwing up. Oh, wait. There he is. Oh, my God. What are you doing to my show?
Making it much, much better. You're welcome. I'm salvaging your shitty show.
You're busting my groove, man. It's all good.
All right, go on, as you were.
It's all good. We went over the rules. So right now, we're just open to questions. There was a whole bunch of comments that went through, and everyone is excited. Let's see. I'll give shout outs to people: Melissa, Jay, Shauna, Diane, Robert, Lori, John Kennedy, Gregory. Wow. John without an H. Janice is in the house. There's a bunch of people. JD, what's up? Dave Schumacher. Oh, shit. Jay, Tiffany, Mike. There's a lot of it. Oh, Celeste is in here, too. I give him shit. You can ask all kinds of questions, Celeste. I will put them all on screen. I'm going to make fun of them. That's fine with me. And I think if I missed you, I'm sorry. But all right. So if you have questions tonight, that's the show. It's open mic night. This is your show. So if you guys don't ask questions, we don't have a show and we go home early. Well, we are home. We're
already home. Whatever. By the way, just in case you're wondering why the glitch was, because I was trying to solve the echo you were complaining about. That was me trying to do you a solid.
Well, that happens once in a while. Actually, more than once in a while. It happens often. During the show when there's multiple people on, once in a while it'll come up, and it only lasts for like 30 seconds or something.
As long as it's fixed, we can move on.
Yeah, we can go move on. All right. So I'm looking. We got a few questions coming up. I'm starting them up. So if I do miss a question, don't yell at me. Just put it up again. And let's see. First question we got is from JD. Oh, that douchebag. I'm kidding. I love you, JD. For Ben, how much does Kenny complain on the regular when you're editing his stuff? Wow.
Excellent question,
take that
JD.
back. He is a douchebag.
So here's the thing about editing Kenny's work.
Here we go.
So there are some among us who are investigators. There are some among us who are writers. And there's the Venn diagram. And Kenny sort of, he's doing the thing there. So here's the thing. And I mean, not to be too facetious about it, but it's true, right? It's because part of what we try to do as investigators, and we've talked about it on the show, in fact, the last time I was on, is the importance of writing it up. Part of the reason that I write my articles and books, and I encourage Kenny to do the same, and Joe and Massimo and others, is so that other people can learn from our investigations. They can look and say, okay, well, in this case, there was this entity case, or this alleged haunted by Zach Baggins and item whatever else. And so getting fixing experiences and learned lessons about investigations particularly is really important, and writing them up. And so this is one of the primary functions of Skeptical Inquirer magazine, also Skeptic magazine from Michael Shermer and others, is to sort of get a body of literature. Not to sound too pretentious about it, but that's an important thing to do. So when Kenny, here's the thing I do for Kenny, which I think he appreciates. We'll find out in a second. So when I edit his stuff, I do all the edits, usually improving it, often greatly. But what I do is I save the version and I send it back to him. Normally, I would just send it on to the editors at Skeptical Inquirer or Barry Carr, the website. But what I do with Kenny's work is I send him the edited version, because as a writer, I know that it's good to have the edited version because it's already had some editors' eyes look at it. So in that way, he can then take not his raw version, but his edited version, which is greatly improved by me, and put that in a book, which Kenny has yet to write. So. Here's what I would say. Kenny, I'm still talking to you. So I would say that Kenny has gotten better about this. So I've occasionally gotten thank yous, and I haven't screenshotted. So I mean, I can provide evidence for this if you don't believe it. I've gotten a handful of thank yous, and let me just say that getting thank yous from writers as an editor is rarer than hen's teeth, because normally editors. It's like any other kind of editing, film editing, any type of editing. If you do your job well, people don't notice it because it all looks great. But of course, they don't see the raw. They don't see what. Anyway, so long story short, Kenny actually doesn't complain that much about about me editing his stuff. He's usually fairly receptive and grateful. And in fact, since JD sort of mentioned that. JD is in the same position. There's been a couple times when I've edited something that JD sent in, and I've actually gotten thank yous and said, "Hey, I appreciate your giving me some pushback or clarifying something." So both you two are a pleasure to edit.
Oh, that's so sweet. That's nice. Oh, I like your shirt, by the way. I love that. That's awesome. But yeah, I do appreciate it. I really do, because I think over the years, so this is just my opinion of myself, over the years, I think I've gotten better. I've certainly go through a lot of more versions. Like I have my method of writing. Like I start with a really rough outline and then just build from there. But yeah, I mean, I've learned so much from sending it to you, getting the edited version back and reading that and seeing the differences and saying, oh yeah, that does sound better. makes me it makes me sound a lot smarter than I am, and that's almost a problem, because then I show up and people are like, "Oh, you're so smart." I'm like, "No, it's not. It's a magic show." I feed in the data, and he makes it sound good. So yes, I do greatly appreciate what you do for me. And it's a lot of fun. Plus, I get to bounce shit off you.
Yes.
Once in a while, I get to, if I have an idea or an issue where I haven't faced before, I can bounce it off you and get an opinion of someone that's experienced in it. So,
and that's actually, I think that's actually one of the sort of lesser recognized roles of editors, is having the institutional knowledge. And that's just not copy editing. I mean, I've been a copy editor for going on a quarter century, and I work with great copy editors as well. But part of the value, I think, that I bring to Skeptical Inquirer and other things is that if somebody sends me, I mean, I've been editing the magazine for, again, almost 24, 25 years now. So I've read literally every single article, and I've read everything ever published in that magazine basically since 96 or something. And so I'm not saying that to brag, but to point out that because of that, I've read this stuff. I mean, I don't have it all in my head at one time, but if somebody sends in an article or something, and I say, okay, well, didn't we do an article on that or whatever else? So that's one of the things I try and do is for writers, and is to act as sort of again, bouncing ideas off. And what do you think about this? Is this a good logical fallacy? What are their angles? And so that's what I try to do, rather than just, correcting grammar and stuff, is try to give substantive feedback, which oftentimes really improves the piece, because it's not just sort of like write it and put it out there. It's like, okay, well, what about this? And have you with that angle, because I always try, and again, we talked about this on the previous show, is writing defensively. So when I write, I try and make my work bulletproof. It isn't always, I'm the first to say that. But, especially if I'm criticizing something or proposing a solution to a mystery, I'm well aware that my critics, of which there are many, are going to be, sharpening their knives and say, well, Radford missed, what about this? And here's this obvious thing that he didn't do. And the more, the better the research you can do, and the more you can fill those holes, the stronger the piece is.
Right. And I agree. I mean, it's nice. We've talked about it on this show, like you and I have talked about it, but it's a general theme on this show about criticism, about how to take it. And sometimes, people can be dicks, but this is not the case. When I submit work, I'm submitting it to someone to edit the work. I'm expecting criticism. I'm expecting it, but it's not something that's putting you down. It's improving the work. So when you give ideas, when you, like, once in a while, you actually send something back and say, hey, I want to change this around a little bit. And it's rare, but when you actually reach out and say, I want to change this a little bit, I think this would flow a little bit better. Yeah. I mean, that's great. That's something that when I look at it, I'm like, yeah, that actually does flow better. And I think that's working together on a project and taking that criticism and taking it as education, not he's being mean to me.
Yeah, my job is to make, and as it is with all writers, is to make your work better. I'm not there to tell you you're wrong, or if you're wrong, I mean, I say, well, have you thought about this? But my job is to retain your message and improve it, and hopefully strengthen it for everybody's benefit. So, and I mean, I get this all the time, and I'm sort of notorious around the offices for querying authors. And there was one literally just today that will presumably be coming out in the next issue of the magazine, where the authors, I won't give the title or the names, but the authors made a bunch of claims, and I wrote 3 or 4 paragraphs saying, author query, well, what about this? And I looked at the reference you gave, and it doesn't quite say that. Can you clarify? I'm not afraid to do that, because that's my job. And if they want to ignore it, or they, if you want, and I've had authors get pissed off at me because they're like, well, I expected you just to, approve it. And like, oh no, this is not what I do.
No. Yeah.
And I've had people who get annoyed at my queries, my author queries, because they don't understand the role of editing in magazines. But anyway, we've babbled on about JD's question long enough.
All right, let's go on to the next one. Let's see. Oh, again from JD. I sent Kenny a link to a video of a trucker catching a ghost girl on camera. His Facebook. I'd like to hear both your opinions on it. Let's see.
Okay, I'm guessing DM is something to do with domination.
Direct message.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
I misunderstood this whole thing. I'm sorry.
Right to the gutter. Right to the gutter, Rafford.
Truckers and ghost girls, dude. What do you know? Have you met JD? Because
I have.
I have not seen this alleged FB BDSM video that you're talking about. So we're gonna have to go with Kenny on that.
Video, but I just see image. There's no video attached to it. So I think we're gonna have to skip this because the link that you sent, JD, is just these are just images that are coming up. There's no actual video.
We'll circle back.
We'll circle back to it. I'm gonna keep it starred, and we'll see if, when we have time, I'll come back to it. All right. Oh, we got Celeste. Can you lower the glare on Ben's head? Unfortunately, I don't think we have the technology available to us today, or maybe in the next couple of years, to do that. So
there are certain things that cannot be done, and that's one of them.
That's
By
right.
the way, there was a comment on my shirt. This is actually a gift from Celestia, FYI.
Oh, that's cool. I like that. I really do. I like that shirt. It almost looks like the ghost is glowing.
Yes, it's very clever. I honestly, I mean, people give me shirts, and I mean, I've only got so many shirts I can wear, but this is one of the ones like, this is
yeah.
Oh yeah, I'll go with.
I got this especially just to wear during this show.
There you go.
This is one of the rules. All right. So Robert, question: why the two $100 bill? So these are not $100 bills. I got these today, and we were just talking about it before the show. I posted about these. These are $1 million bills, but they're fake. Somebody put them, a stack of these. I would say there was like 20 or 30 of them, easy, in the break room at my work.
You found $20 or $30 million?
I know,
crazy.
Like on my lunch break. Holy shit, I'm done. But when you turn it over, it goes into like a religious kind of a guilt trip. So it's a mix of deception and guilt trip from religion, from these religious people, not all religious people, but these, whoever prints these. It's what is this? Who's this from? Oh, livingwaters.com. That's who print these. But I was showing Ben like this. So here's a real dollar bill matched up to this. And it's like the perfect size. It's exactly the same shape. The paper and the ink, it all looks legit. And you have to get really close. And again, you're not going to see it. But right in the green strip, that's where it says this is not legal tender. It's very, very deceiving.
I'm guessing the 4-color Benjamin Franklin is the clue as well, but
yeah, I don't know. I mean, what's a $1 million bill look like? Now, let's see. This is the kind of fun stuff we do on the show. Let's see. 1 million.
I don't think you're going to find one. The larger ones that were taken out of circulation, I think, about 20 years ago.
Let's see.
I think maybe 10,000.
So it looks like, so colorful. Oh no, there's the cheap one. Oh, it's got a Statue of Liberty on it. That's what it look. Oh no, this is an eBay thing. So I don't know. That would take some time to figure out if there's actually a real $1 million bill. I'm sure there is.
Sure, there is.
I don't know, but we're gonna move on. So that's the case with those things. They're not real. It's just bullshit. But it's a fun novelty. I'm gonna keep it. All right. Let's see. Moving on. For Ben from John without an H, why don't you have a beard?
Well, I don't have a beard. Well, a fair question, if entirely irrelevant. I've had a goatee at various times. I had a beard when I was waiting tables in college, and I looked very Amish. And in fact, at one point, I was waiting tables, and I was at the High Finance Restaurant, which is at the top of the tram on Sandia Mountain, if you're familiar with And I was just waiting tables in the middle of the night, and this woman, just halfway through the meal, as I was giving them their salad, she looks at me very earnestly. She says, "Are you of that faith?" So I scratched my Jebediah beard and I said, "No, ma'am." So ever since that time, but yeah, I couldn't pull. I mean, look at that amazing beard that Kenny's got. I can't match that. So
this is like a work in progress, because I've never had a beard before I really started growing it, and I wanted to do that professor look. So I think I got it a little bit, but I don't know. I'm still like, I get itchy and I'm like, I don't know. Maybe I'll shave it, but I don't know.
And the other thing to keep in mind is that just in general, and this is just maybe my experience, is that if you're bald and you're shaving your head, a beard looks a little odd. Maybe not like some Norwegian lumberjack way, but for a lot of people, it's not a yeah.
Okay. Moving on. Let's see. America the Fearful from Jade Kitten. Audiobook soon?
Oh, kind of you to say. She's referring to my most recent book, out about a month,
which I have.
Giving a talk. Yes, you have a copy.
I have a copy. Not only do I have a copy, but I have an autographed copy, which has a lot of bad words in it, so I'm not going to read it.
So yes, audiobook. Good question. I've only done one audiobook for any of my books. I've published 12. I think that's my 13th book. The only one that I did a complete audiobook for is for my book Investigating Ghosts. And I narrate the whole thing. So I had, back when I lived in Buffalo, I had a little bit of voiceover training for like doing voiceovers and characters and stuff. And so I had a little bit of experience with that. And actually, Pascual Romero, my co-host on Scoring the Strange, was the audio engineer for that. So anyway, long story short, there's only one book that has the audio version of it. That's Investigating Ghosts. If you want to hear me read it, you can. The most recent book, it's done through McFarland. And the thing about audiobooks is that for most books, unless they're like super high profile, it's not, the return isn't going to be there for most publishers. Okay. They're just, because you have to hire an engineer, you have to hire. I mean, I would probably be willing to record America the Fearful, although Investigating Ghosts, I think, took like 6 weeks or something. With I mean, it's a work intensive process.
Yeah.
Anyway, long story short, it's probably not going to happen. I appreciate the enthusiasm. It's probably not going to happen just because. They are already. You do not have the audiobook. If you do, then I need to call my lawyer. But anyway, it's just one of those things where unless your name is Stephen King or Rowling, or unless you're a higher tier, the publisher most likely is not going to invest in the resource to get it out there, no matter how brilliant it is. I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah. As soon as I got it and got home, I recorded my own and I started selling bootlegs. So. That's why she has one.
But then people are gonna wonder, why does Ben have that weird accent? That weird, freaky,
weird Philly accent.
You got this accent. You don't even know you have an accent.
Well, you have an accent.
You got the accent. You got the accent.
Whatever. Hate you. Question, Kenny. You print your own currency now. I see examples on your. All right, so we touched that. No, not yet. But I kept it in my pocket all day, and I kept like I went up to the lunch. We have a cafeteria where you can go up and buy, and I was like, "You got change for $1 million?" And I got like just a dead stare, like don't worry about it. I'll get it later. I'll stop at the bank. Not a problem. All right, for Ben, where did you get that shirt? Oh, you already answered that. That was a gift.
Yes, Celestia sells these on her website. No, she doesn't actually. This is just a gift from her, so check it out.
Okay. Jay says, I asked this question on an earlier show, and you were going to ask Ben to be a guest. So since Ben is here, I'll ask it again. Would you do a show on a topic of mass delusion?
Sure. Well, yeah. I mean, mass delusion and mass hysterias and things like that, and mass hallucinogenic illness and psychogenic illness. These are all sort of versions of the same thing. On my podcast, Squaring the Strange, we've done a couple episodes on mass delusions. We did one show on the Bangladesh toilet ghost, which as weird as it sounds, we actually did a show on a toilet ghost in Bangladesh, which encounters some of that. The Pokemon Panic is a form of that. We did a show on that. So the answer is yes. I'd be happy to do a show on mass delusions and mass hysterias. Bob Bartholomew and I have co-authored a couple books on that. It's such a broad thing that really I've touched on it in some of my writings along the way. And really it's a sort of topic that is best suited to specific case studies. I mean, I could certainly give a talk on mass hysterias and mass delusions and MSI, but it's really sort of, in order to really understand the nuances of it, it's best to sort of like give an overview and then do a couple case studies to bring it up. But we'll certainly do one on Squaring the Strange at some point.
Yeah, and I know you've done a couple shows where you've touched on it and it's come up and you've gotten probably more in depth than you wanted to during your show, but it's really good. So if Jay, I would suggest you check it out if you haven't already. There's a 3 or 4 I think shows that I remember you guys touching on this. So at least, definitely check it out. All right, next, Jim, for Ben, what specifically is an author inquiry?
So an author, so there's 2 different things. So an author inquiry, which is that would be basically an author sending a query letter to an editor, such as myself or Ken Fraser or somebody else, essentially a pitch to the magazine. The author query, which is similar, would be an editorial thing. So that's where, for example, if I'm editing a column or an article or anything, the editing, and I've been thinking a lot about editing just because just this morning, yesterday, I wrote an article on the Center for Inquiry page that I have a brief section on copy editing, just because it sort of fit as an example. It was on first, do no harm, and the idea was that this is one of the cardinal rules of copy editing: is if you get an article or a magazine or a column or something, you ideally, of course, you try to improve the work. You make it better. You refine the ideas. You improve the writing, this and that. But if you can't improve it, then you might just sort of make it neutral, like make some changes that don't really improve it, but they don't make it any worse. Swapping words, like synonyms. The worst thing you can do as a copy editor is to make it worse, is to introduce an error, is to change something that was right in the first place, and then you made it wrong. You're the asshole. And I've done that a couple of times, and I always groveling with apologies because that's the worst thing to do. Anyway, so I'm sort of giving an overview on copy editing here, but basically, part of the editor's job, and there's lots of different things. It's fixing grammar, it's making things consistent with the style guide, usually Chicago manual style, and so on. But now and then, if you're a good editor, you'll read something that the author wrote and you'll say, hold on, that ain't right. Or this doesn't seem right, or this contradicts something else, or whatever else. And so you send a query to the author. And it's you usually put it in all caps and bold, just so it pops out. And when you send it back to them for proofs, where you say, okay, well, we edited your piece, here it is again, make any change or whatever else. So in these cases, you ask for clarification, you say there's a contradiction here. So it's something more substantive, and it could be anything from there's a missing reference. Can you provide the reference to this is flat out wrong, or maybe this is a good piece. Maybe you should cite the piece that Kenny, Bill, and I did on in this magazine article a while back. So that's what author query is. It's basically a question back to the author that they are expected to answer. They may or may not do it to your satisfaction, but they're expected to give some justification or clarification or correction. And sometimes they're appreciative, sometimes they're not.
Yeah, I've gotten a few once in a while. Mostly, well, you ask me questions all the time, so it's not like a formal thing, but you do ask me questions to clarify stuff. Julia has sent me these kind of queries saying, hey, like this reference doesn't fit anything here. Where's it go? Because I think there's one large article I did, I think the Conjuring House one that I did, where it went through a lot of revisions, because as I learned more or gained more insight to some things, I changed it. And I think there were like 2 references that I had not used.
Yeah, it happens all the time.
Yeah. And it just got, lost in the shuffle. So, but it's no big deal. And I don't know if it's just the way I got into this, but as soon as I get that, it's like, that's priority to me. And it's just like going back to the criticism. When you give me some criticism, I take it seriously. I don't take it like as an insult or, I suck at this now. It's like, all right, cool. I got it. All right, I'll fix this. No problem. All right, let's move on here. I got, for me, have you tried beard butter? I have not, Jim. Dr. Jim. Dr. Jim is great. I love Dr. Jim. We hung out a while back in Gettysburg, and I'm going to get to hang out with him again next month at Fort Mifflin here in Philly. So we're going to hang out. But no, I have not tried. That's the thing. Like, the beard thing is new to me. I don't know how to take care of it. I don't have time to look into how to take care of it. I'm always looking at other people's mysteries instead of my own. So I don't know. We'll figure.
For more tips on hygiene, follow Kenny on Instagram.
Just grow it. That's all you need to know. Oh, let's see. What else we got? Oh, Donna's in the house. How's the house looking? Next question from Celeste. Ben, now that you have your degree in public health, when will you become Biden's Minister of Misinformation Mitigation? Oh,
great question. By the way, I appreciate the alliteration. I'm a big fan of alliteration, as people who have read my stuff will recognize. Working on it. Yeah. So as many of you probably know, not a big secret, but I graduated with a master's degree in public health, of all things.
Nice.
Thank you, from Dartmouth about a week or 2 ago. And so I'm sort of trying to figure out what to do with that. And part of what to do with that is mitigating misinformation. And frankly, this is nothing new. I mean, to some degree, it's weird. Like when I've done different projects and stuff, is that every now and then someone will say, well, this is weird. This is out of left field, right? So for example, bad clowns or mass hysteria or something. So they think of me as doing like media literacy, or they think of me as like doing ghosts or chupacabras. All of a sudden I'm researching the history of clowns, and they're like, well, this is totally new for you. No, it's really not. It's all part of the same thing. It's like, explaining things that are strange or unusual or whatever else. And so I see a common thread through all my work, even though it may seem disparate along the way. But anyway, so long story short, I've been sort of doing stuff for years. I mean, basically all the anti-vax, fighting stuff over COVID for the past 2 years. So I mean, it's nothing new. I've just sort of formalized it, and then trying to sort of find ways to bridge the gap between folklore and media literacy and skepticism, and trying to bring everybody to the table and say, look, misinformation is a genuine threat to public health, as it is to lots of things. One of the core parts of one of the core themes of my life. And ideally, the best way to address this is to bring different disciplines into it. And it's not just skeptics' problem. It's not just journalists' problem. It's not just, everybody needs to chip in and help with the misinformation problem.
Right. I agree. I mean, oh man, sorry. Whew. I think it's just because I'm used to a lot of the things that you do. I follow a lot of your work. So when you do quote unquote strange things or go off on different topics people aren't used to, it doesn't seem surprising to me. Like when Bad Clowns came out, I was like, yeah, that's Ben. that doesn't surprise me that he would pick clowns and do an entire book on like the history and evolution of that. And I was like, yeah, that's pretty much him. But I listen to a lot of the stuff that you do, so
Yes, you're familiar with it already.
Yeah. And I mean, I love that. And I've been trying to do that, branch out a little bit more, like broaden the subject matter that I deal with. So it's not just ghosts, because you kind of get into that stereotype that, I don't know what it would call it. I don't know the term, but
yeah, sort of,
you're pigeonholed into like a subject.
You get in the groove, and yeah, it's easy to do that, and yeah, I mean that's part of it. And
so
at some point, you just like I've been there, man. I mean, it's like with the Chupacabra. It's like I'm proud of the work I did. It's out there. The book is there. Every now and then I'll write some sort of nuance on it, but basically I'm done with it. I got nothing else to add to it. Right. I mean, I might do an article on, iconography or some minor aspect, but as with a lot of the topics, and to be honest with you, to some degree, it's the same thing with ghosts. I mean, I haven't done an actual ghost investigation in years. I do have one that you and I may be working on, but I mean, it's just, I did it for a long time. I wrote a book on it. It's not that I'm bored with it because there's so many aspects to it. It doesn't hold much for me.
It's something different, and like when I did a video on homeopathy, and that was like, it was out of my wheelhouse, not the stuff that I usually do, but I had fun with it, and it was well received, and at least I think it was. But it was fun. It was fun to get out of my circle there. Typecast it. Is that the typecast it? So because it's like Ben Radford, ghost guy. He investigates paranormal stuff, and so I don't want to get just stuck with that, because I do a lot of that. And again, just like you, I'm not bored with it. I love doing it, and I'm going to continue to do it for the foreseeable future. But I want to touch on other topics. I want to get out there. I want to piss off other people.
Oh, don't worry. This is the thing. When you expand beyond ghosts into conspiracy theories, you open up whole new doors of hate. Oh yeah. It's just this glorious sea of shitstorm just waiting to have your email address.
I did. So one of my social media accounts is on TikTok, and it's a skeptical look. I usually deal with like poltergeist videos or ghost videos, and I do recreations of them. And I saw, what was it? Alyssa Milano, of all people, did something on one of the UFO videos. And I think it was the triangle, the pyramid shaped one.
One that Mick West debunked.
Right.
Day one.
I did a response to her, and I didn't think anything of it, because I started the video out like, Alyssa Milano. I grew up having a crush on you, but you're wrong. And this is why. And I explained the video and the what caused it. And I think that had over 1 million views. Just that video. And it was so many UFO people really pissed off. I stopped listening or stopped reading it, because I was like, no, I'm not dealing with this. It's just people just bitching and moaning and complaining. But yeah, it's really easy. You get that little niche, you can really piss them off. And oh my. And Mick West, I mean, shit, he does it all the time.
Yeah. Kudos to Mick. I mean, he's
All right, so I think I'm out of questions right now.
There's got to be some more questions at some point.
Yeah,
I'm not following the chat because
I'm seeing a lot of comments. People are debating amongst themselves or having fun, and I think they're listening. And that's usually the sign. The less questions I have with more viewers, it's because they're listening and they're really interested. So if you guys got questions, we still got about 20 minutes before we go to break. What's this? Shauna, what is this?
What is this?
What is this?
What is this?
Shauna. Oh, I don't know. Is that like an inside joke?
What is this?
Oh, energy?
Energy. It's energy.
There we go. Oh my God. That is when we have to drink, because somebody says energy.
All right. Here we go.
Clink. All right. We got another question. Oh, we got it too. Let's see. We have either of you two gents come across why humans evolved hardwiring to believe in things that is gods, myths, etc. like that. So I guess why do we just evolve to believe this shit?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, ultimately, it's evolutionary psychology, and I mean, there's lots of different aspects to it. The late Paul Kurtz, who hired me at the Center for Inquiry, then the PsyCop back in the day, he was a philosopher at SUNY Buffalo, and he co-founded PsyCop, of course. And he wrote many books, including writing about what he called the transcendental temptation. And it was the idea that humans are hardwired to see things beyond ourselves, to intuit and interpret things around us and see meaning behind things. And on one level, this is actually similar to conspiracy theory psychology, right? It's the idea that the universe is not just random. We're not just, genetic blends with uncertain ends, to quote a great Rush song. But there are powers that be that we cannot see that are in control. That could be the Illuminati, that could be lizard people, that could be gods, it could be different, take your pick. And so because the human mind has evolved to sort of look for patterns, right? We see patterns in clouds, we see patterns in coffee stains and so on, faces, for example, with ghost photos. In the same way, we've evolved to see patterns in nature, sometimes which aren't there. So I think that's sort of a short, concise answer to the evolution of hardwiring is it was evolutionarily adaptive for us to go beyond what we saw in our immediate environment. So it was adaptive for our ancestors and our forefathers, or whichever way the scale goes on that, to not just take everything around us literally, but to sort of see causes and this causes that, and wow, we're in a drought, and yesterday I prayed to the rain gods and it rained. And maybe there's some connection. So I think that's part of the answer.
Yeah, I totally agree, and I think it's imagination. We do have vivid imaginations, and we come up with excuses for things. And I mean, we see it still today, where instead of trying to figure out exactly what happened, people like to make up shit. And when I say that, I'm not just saying like they're deliberately trying to deceive people, although some do. There are people where they try to reason out in their head with the knowledge that they already have to try to figure out what's going on. And When there's gaps in that knowledge, they fill it in. They simply fill it in, whether it's true or not. They fill it in with information that sounds like it fits or should fit or seems or whatever. And then when you tell that story, especially from the vantage point of a perceived authority figure, someone giving a lecture, someone in charge of a group, someone with a uniform, something like that, it becomes like, oh, okay, I'll take you at your word because you look like a professional, you look like an expert. And that gets into the mainstream community and becomes tribal knowledge. And I think that's the way some of this evolves. We're hardwired, yeah, but we also have this imagination that we take literally sometimes. And I mean, for me, from my personal experience, I grew up Catholic. I grew up in a Catholic household. I didn't just naturally start believing in an invisible person in the sky. I was told to believe that.
Right.
I was conditioned to believe that. And that wasn't something that I think is part of evolution. That was conditioning by my mom, actually. And it took a while to break that conditioning because you had that weird fear, like growing up, becoming a teenager, I started rebelling and not going in church. But I was that class clown. Like, oh, what would happen if I don't go to church? Let's go to the playground instead.
Let's
see what happens. But you know what? I'm inside one of the old school playground where you could actually get hurt, which was fun. But inside one of the big structures, like scared shitless, thinking, oh, I'm going to get punished. I'm going to get punished. God's going to tell everyone, but nothing happened. And the more that stuff happened, the more it started going against those beliefs. So that I guess hardwired conditioning started breaking down.
Yeah, I mean, in your case, I mean, after you jacked off for the 5th time and you realized that God was not, in fact, going to strike you down, I imagine it was real revelation for you, and it opened up your world in so many ways. But I want to address this other part, because in the things he's talking about being that are believing, and so we have gods and myths. And there's others as well, but the two specific ones are gods and myths. And keep in mind that these are essentially folkloric things, right? So myths and gods, a myth is a story. It's a legend. It is a narrative. It's something that you learn. There's Greek myths and Native American myths, all sorts of myths, but it's a story. And humans are of course, storytelling animals. It's the same thing with gods, right? Is that if you're raised in an atheist or non-secular world, you don't have gods because no one ever told you the story of God. So if you're just, if you just look at the world around you, now you may think there's some supernatural influence. That could be that, well, if I did this, then I got better. Or, we prayed for rain, this happened. But that's the sort of a general belief in something supernatural, not necessarily a specific God. So this is what Kenny was talking about before is the received narratives. And so these are stories that we get. So we're looking around us. We're trying to figure out, how does this work? How does the world work? And there are these authorities. Authorities could be imams, could be priests, could be shamans, could be New Age spiritual leaders, could be, take your pick. And they say, well, thank you for asking. I'm an authority. Look at these robes. Look at my Rolls Royce. Look at my TV show. Look at my podcast. I know these things. Come to me, my child. I'll explain this. And this is how cults start. This is how religions start, and so on. And so I think that's part of it. Is that in terms of why we've evolved to have this belief, is that we're storytelling animals, and we want people who are going to give us answers, right? If there's some authority who has a prepackaged centuries or millennia old story that they're selling, and I don't mean that cynically, but just that's what it is, then you might say, yeah, that's, a lot of people believe this, and there's churches I can go to with similar people, and that's one reason people get into it.
Yeah. All right. That's good. That's great. I love it. Good question, Gregory. All right. I think people are picking up on it. What's that?
I'm out of beer, man. Hold on.
We got 10 minutes before we can go to break. All right. So Wade, what are some other podcasts in addition to Squaring the Strange you would recommend? Ooh, that's a good one. So there's this awesome podcast called The Skeptical Help Bar. I would recommend that. Guy's kind of a, know it all, but
kind of,
he's all right. You get used to him. What else?
Richard
There's a bunch.
Saunders.
Richard Saunders, yes. The Skeptic Zone.
Skeptic Zone, yeah.
Yes, I like that.
Brian Dunning's podcast is
Skeptoid.
Yeah.
What else?
There's SGU. I mean, I'll be totally honest with you. I don't listen to a lot of podcasts, not because I'm hoity-toity. I just don't have the bandwidth. I mean, especially recently.
Yeah.
My schedule lightened up a lot in the last couple of weeks.
Yeah. I was very surprised when I was like, today, we're talking today. And I'm like, yeah, you want to come on and just hang out? And you're like, yeah, sure. Oh, shit. That doesn't happen.
Yeah, I couldn't do that for about 2 years, but yeah, I'm back on. So,
That's good.
Celestia would be a good person. I mean, she's not on, but she listens to podcasts all the time. And here's the weird thing, and I'll be honest, I don't think this is a big secret, but I think it's weird. So she falls asleep to podcasts. Now, I'm sure some people can say, "Oh, everybody does it." No, not everybody does it. It's weird, and here's why. Because if you're trying to go to sleep, I don't want voices and people talk, because I'm paying attention to it. So as much as I love Celestia, I've always found that to be really weird that people, and apparently it's not just her, I'm just picking on her because I had a beer. But anyway, so the point here is that she listened to a whole bunch of different podcasts.
Wow. I usually have the TV on, and I have YouTube channels on that are like science channels, and I have that on, and I go to sleep to that. I like, I think at night, because if I go to bed before like midnight or 1 a.m., I'm just laying there like staring at the ceiling, thinking, like running through things. Oh, I got to do this project. I got to do this. I start writing out like outlines for articles and videos in my head. So at least if I'm preoccupied watching a science video where I have to pay attention and learn, yes, I usually make it. It depends on how interesting the video is, because sometimes it just keeps me up later. And other times I'm like, oh, I fall asleep. Usually I do. If I really want to fall asleep, I start reading a book.
I mean, again, everybody's different. I mean, if you want to do, just for me personally, I would be so trying to stay awake to hear what the person's saying. I would never.
Right.
But everybody. Oh, and of course, there's the devil in details. I think JD Sword.
Oh, JD's, yeah. He gets into a lot of literally details of the topic, which is really good. There's a podcast called You Are Not So Smart that I listen to. I really like it. It really gets into a lot of different weird topics, but a lot of science, a lot of modern science, a lot of old science, a lot of just it's good. And don't let the title fool you. It's a really good podcast.
Yeah, I think the only other podcast I can remember listening to back when I had time was the podcast called 99% Invisible, which was interesting. But again, it's honestly it's been forever. But those are the main ones I would highly recommend. And unfortunately, Sharon Hill, not unfortunately, but Sharon Hill used to have a podcast which is now defunct, but she's still writing at Spooky Geology. So check out her stuff.
Yes. There's another one called Spooky Science Sisters, which I listen to. They are great. I've listened to them for a while. They actually were on the show. I was on their show, I think twice, but they pick topics and they research it and they talk. They have fun. It's more relaxed, but they do really good, solid research.
And I'll do a shout out to Mark Norman's the Folklore podcast. If you're into folklore as I am, Norman's podcast is it's great. I've been a guest once or twice, and I haven't listened to any episodes for a while just because I've been so busy. But Folklore podcast, check it out.
Okay. Oh, and lastly, there's a cool one on Saturday nights called Three Tortured Souls, and it's three guys, and they really have a good time. So check that one out. And I know most of you do. So, all right, one more question, and then we're going to go to break. So you'll have time to come up with a couple more questions because I only have like 3 more to go. Oh, this is going to be a long one. I'm going to save JD. I know you have a question. I'm going to save it for after the break because I think we're going to get into it. Jade Kitten has a good, it's a statement for Ben. If you're disabled and enrolled in the Talking Book program from a Library of Congress in Mysterious New Mexico, Miracles, Magic, and Monsters in the Land of Enchantment is in audiobook.
Very cool. I did not know that. Thank you for thanks for flagging me that. That's cool.
Yeah, that's really cool.
I'm making a note right now.
Awesome. I love that kind of stuff. All right, so we'll go to break early, and I'll put this up here. I'll give you a teaser. This is the question from JD. What was it like in the Not So Haunted Museum? So again, after the break, we can get into that a little bit. We can talk a little bit about it. But not too much because we got to save it. Oh, well, actually, we talk a lot about it on your show.
Which due to Celestia's endurance editing is now out. So
yes,
but because you were on the show, it's been our longest show ever.
What? Ever? It wasn't me. It was Susan. I totally blame her.
Blame Susan.
Well, I'm going to blame Susan. All right, so I'm going to keep your question there in the queue, JD, and we are going to come back to it after the break. So I'm going to get the break ready up here. So we have 3 minutes. So if you got to pee, go ahead and do it, and then fill up your cup, not with the pee, with alcohol. And we'll be back in 3 minutes from now.
Do satanic cults lurk in the shadows? Can memories of satanic ritual abuse be repressed? Do exorcisms really drive out demons, and are those demons always possessing Zach Baggins? I'm JD Sword, the Satanic Skeptic. Join me on The Devil in the Details as I examine these questions and more, bringing a skeptical and satanic perspective to the paranormal. The Devil in the Details, available on Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, Spotify, and more.
Jetham for us. Jetham for us. Hail Satan. Hail
Satan. Are you tortured by what you see and hear about the paranormal field? Join us as we critically examine and question paranormal claims, science, ghosts, demons, cryptids, UFOs, ghost hunting technology, and much more are all on the table for discussion. 3 Tortured Souls is a video podcast that streams live on Saturdays at 8 p.m. Eastern and 5 Pacific. 3 Tortured Souls.
All right, we are back. How you doing? Oh, you got what are you drinking now? Water?
Yes. I got work. I got stuff to do, man. I'm busy.
Whatever.
I'm limiting my. You know what? Don't hit me tomorrow night, man. But right now, I'm limited to one.
That's all right. No problem. There's no pressure here. It's a bar. You drink what you want. I don't harass people too much, but you're a special person.
Great, thanks.
So I'm gonna. All right. So let's see. Put this back up here. What was it like in the Not So Haunted Museum? So 2 weeks ago, a whole bunch of us, including us two, we were in Vegas, Las Vegas, Nevada, and it was somebody's idea, Ben's, to visit Zach Baggins Museum. And I have a suspicion that it was more to see if I would get kicked out than anything else. Which was,
I wanted to see that. I wanted to see Zach personally roughing you up.
You know what? Honestly, I don't think that would happen.
Well, I know, but that's what I'm just telling you what I wanted to see.
Yeah. Well, no, you know what?
I mean, fisticuffs.
Aside from, like, I'm not trying to instigate any kind of physical activity here, but after seeing him, because we did glimpse him, he walked by us as we were walking in.
He didn't recognize either one of us for a couple reasons, but yes.
But that was the first time that I'd seen him in person and in daylight. So when I saw him, I realized my first thought was he is tiny. He's a small, like, he's not a little person. He's just small. He's a small guy. And you see him on TV and you think, like, you know, he looks like he's a big guy. Well, I know he used to be built. I don't think he is anymore. But
he pays people to work out for him, so he's
Well,
got money
maybe
now.
I don't know. And I'm not trying to be like a dick and make fun of him, but he was just a lot smaller in size and stature than I expected. So I was actually surprised. But if it did come to fisticuffs, I have no problem at all. But anyway, so we went there, and yeah, one of the ideas was am I going to get kicked out? Because I had been told from former employees that I was banned from the museum, so I didn't know how it was going to go. But I did get in, and people know my feelings about it. But why don't you give a little bit of what do you think, Ben?
Yeah, so I had never been to the museum before. Obviously, I had heard about it and read about it, partly through editing Kenny's articles on some of the Scooby Doo's non-haunted museum of bullshit. So I was familiar with some of them as well. I've honestly only seen his show a couple times. I find it tedious and just overwrought, and just I find it frankly pretty boring. But I had written about Zach in one of my books. I think it was my Investigating Ghost book, because he had I talk about this briefly on the show, so I won't go into the whole thing. But he had basically there was an actor named David Strickland from Suddenly Susan who died, and he died I think by suicide on the Las Vegas Strip, actually not too far from his museum. And I came across a press release from Zach, which was talking about how he allegedly had gotten EVPs from this dead actor, and which he believed was real, presumably. And he then used allegedly that dead actor's EVP, or his voice, and Beyond the Grave, in a music album, which I thought was really kind of skeezy and exploitive for various reasons. Anyway, so that sort of was one of my first introductions to him. And then, of course, there's the whole plagiarism thing, which was a whole other thing. So I showed up, and it was cool. I mean, I was there with Susan and Kenny and Shauna Slut. Unfortunately, Sasha couldn't make it, but Ian Harris was there, and others as well. And it was about what I expected. It was longer than I expected. It was just sort of crammed with like irrelevant stuff, just sort of like, creepy dolls and two-headed cows and just, interest. I mean, I wasn't offended by it. It was just sort of seemed like it was sort of randomly just jammed together. Mm-hmm. So it was like a lot of it was just sort of random stuff, just sort of like filling up this big house with tangential, if any, relevance to anything haunted. So that was a little sketchy. And then there were a couple things that were of some genuine historical significance, arguably. But it was just really seemed really padded out. So, but there were a couple of fun times. I remember at one point I had they had, what was it, a doll? What was it they had little monitor with?
Oh yeah, it was a small doll. I forget the name, but they had the SLS camera. They had video of an SLS
on
camera.
Loop,
yeah.
And so they have this allegedly super haunted doll. Oh my god! And then right next to this little iPad with this thing on replay, and I'm looking at it, I'm like, there's nothing there. I mean, you come on. And so finally, we didn't announce ourselves as skeptics, and in fact, we went semi undercover. He was Kevin, and I was Brad, and we bought him under someone else's name and things like that. Plus, we were wearing masks, so it was possible that we would have been recognized, but in the end, we weren't, so it wasn't an issue. But we weren't there to disrupt the tour. We weren't there to cause problems. We weren't there to embarrass anybody. We're just there to sort of see. But I couldn't help ask a couple of questions. So at one point I'm like, so this thing is like, how does this how does this thing we're supposed to be detecting anomalies, how does this work? And the tour guide's like, well, I don't really know, but it uses the same technology as the SRS or whatever the hell it was. And I'm like, Oh, well, there you go. He uses the same technology as this other ghost gadget. That's also bullshit. Okay, well, and then so we go through the whole thing, and again, I wasn't trying to bust anybody's balls, but sort of, like, come on, man. And then in the end, so we, of course, they spit you out in the gift shop, and we're going around there, and there's another one of their little beepy gadgets. I'm like, so how does this thing work? I'm pointing to like this ghost detecting device, and of course I know exactly. I mean, I know more. Kenny and I know more about this than anybody else in the entire building.
Right.
So I'm like, how does this work exactly? And they're like, well, yeah, I'm not really sure. It sort of scans radio signals. I'm like a radio? Yeah, but it's like a broken radio. Like, come on. And then so we got a couple of his books. And and I'm like, so I set it up perfectly. So I'm like, oh, I see you have some of Zach's books. Do you have that one he wrote about the ghost hunting for dummies? Do you have that one? And of course, that was the one that Kenny busted him for plagiarizing, which was recalled by the publisher. So I knew that was it. And she's like, oh, we don't have that one. I'm like, oh, you don't.
It was very interesting because, and I want to say off the bat, like at least the first tour guide, most of the tour guides were actually pleasant. They were nice people. And I don't there's no ill will towards them at all. I mean, they're working there. They have a script to follow.
They're first tour guide, there's no AC in there.
Right. That was a big problem because there's a lot of videos, usually surveillance videos that is shared with like TMC or other local news stations, because when something happens, when somebody faints, especially around a new exhibit that's opening or just got there. But you have to understand that when you're inside, it's freaking hot. It is very hot. There's very few places that have some kind of air conditioning going. And I mentioned it on your show, oh my God, I totally blanking on his name now. The gangster.
Capone.
Al Capone, yeah. Like there's a room dedicated to him, I think would hit like the rug that.
Yeah,
what was
tangential? Like, here's Charles Manson's, pen. Whatever. Come on. I mean,
but yeah, there was just that room. You could go inside, and it was cool. It was actually cool. You could feel the vent coming from the ceiling. You could feel the cool air. But the rest of the place is hot. There were several times when I was like, just standing there going, "Yo, I'm just sweating standing here. I know I'm fat, but I'm just standing, not doing anything." And I'm feeling it, like it's hot in here. And I mean, when you're with a group of people, it was only 13 of us. Well, 14 with the guide.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's hot. People are going to pass out. I have no doubt people are going to pass out. And it's nothing to do with the not haunted objects in that museum.
Right. And keep in mind how many people go through there every day. I mean, it's like, so yeah, you can, if you comb through enough of that, you can find, I don't know, a dozen or so video of somebody who just happens to pass out. Well, how many people do you have going through there since it's been open? Like tens of thousands,
right?
So it's like, if I just, come on. I mean, it was just so. I don't know. I mean, some of it was genuinely interesting from a folkloric point of view, right? So, for example, I saw the Crying Boy paintings, which I had researched, and we did a show on. In fact, a colleague of mine did sort of the groundbreaking work, David Clark. If you haven't seen, if you're interested in the work, Google Dave Clark or David Clark and Crying Boy. He's a folklorist in Sheffield, I think, England. Did a great research on it, and we had him on the show. So there was a Crying Boy painting, which is kind of cool. It has a whole fascinating mystery, and it was interesting because a lot of the objects, and it's the same thing with Kenny. We knew more about the object than pretty much anybody, including Zach. This is the ironic thing. Like, he and I know more about most of these objects than anybody else in the entire building, including Zach if he's upstairs, watching us, wherever else, just because this is what we do, and we're not trying to portray it as some big mystery. So we see these things, and we know the true story behind these, and more so Kenny than me in many cases. But it's just weird sort of seeing how completely biased and mystery mongering and one-sided this stuff is, where it's like, well, the basics are right, but you left out 80% of it
Right.
that explains it.
A lot of the stories they just leave out the facts. They give you the basic idea, and then they give you the legend or the folklore, and they leave out what isn't actually known about the objects. There was a lot there. Let me rephrase that. There were not a lot of haunted items,
Right.
and that I think there were actually less this time than the first time I went, with Donna and then Susan and Mark. I think there were more items that were on display and presented as haunted or cursed or whatever than there were this time. In fact, like the first couple of rooms that we went into, we were told about objects. We were told about things, not really haunted or cursed, more like with a weird history, or something like that. And then we were left to browse for like a minute or two, which was completely different from the last experience that I had. And I also want to piggyback on the heat and the environment in there. The steps. There were several places that were there were steps that were small steps, and they were not concealed but hard to see. And if you didn't point them out, it was easy to trip or fall down. And I mean, when I'm talking is like that, there are smaller steps. Take a regular step, and then they were halved. So you had, instead of one basic step, you had two smaller steps, and they were not marked well. So yeah, you could walk into a room and completely miss a step, and then you'll stumble and fall. And then I can totally see them saying, "Look, they were pushed by the demon."
They signed waivers, but they're pushed by a demon.
Yeah, we all had to sign waivers again. So
yeah, I mean, I get you. It was just sort of like a mix of stuff, and they had a whole thing on clowns, which was kind of interesting to me. But then had like circuses, and then they had a little blockhead act, which is basically a sideshow guy who was putting a drill in his nose. And it's fine. I mean, I like sideshows. That's one of the things, but it has nothing to do with haunted items. It's just sort of this,
right.
It's all sort of lumped together. Oh, clowns are scary, and circuses, and this and that, and a two-headed chicken. I'm like, come on, man. It's like, I don't know. It just seems sort of thrown together, and it just could have been. It could have been better done, even for mystery mongering. I guess what I would say.
Yeah.
But anyway,
there's one thing I want to touch on before we move on to the next question, which we didn't get to discuss on your show, which everyone go over to the latest episode of Scoring the Strange and listen to that, because we get into more detail. Susan Gerbic is also with us, and she gives her perspective, and we also, there's a special guest, which I won't spoil, but listen in. It's interesting. But at one point, there was to me, it was a new exhibit where we were out in a hallway, and I think it was on the second floor. We were out in a hallway, and the guide is telling us that it was a mummified head, and that we were going to go see it, and they asked us to be quiet out of respect, because this was an actual dead person.
I'd forgotten that, yeah.
And it's a mummified head, and you're going to go through, and it was basically, you went into a room, but it was, I guess it was set up like a U. So you would go around, and when you turn the corner, you saw it, and then you would continue on. You weren't supposed to stop. And they're going on and about like being respectful and treat the dead with respect. And we go in, as soon as I go in this little hallway, there's more like spooky, demonic, hellish kind of decoration, decor. And I turn the corner and I look in the case, and there's the mummified head. And behind it, there's freaking devil horns mounted on the backboard, like looking like it's coming out of that head. And it was real quick, but my first thought was, you motherfucker. You're telling us to be respectful, and you're setting up this dead person's head in this demonic decor and making it like a horror movie kind of thing, instead of being like the respectful kind of thing you're telling us to do.
Right.
And it really pissed me off. I came out of there and I was like, I remember saying I have issues with this, and I was just really angry about it, and I wanted to get into it more, but I didn't want to spoil. I didn't want to reveal that we were a group of skeptics, but I mean, if I had nothing to lose, that would have been my moment right there. I would have been like, this is disrespectful. You guys are disrespectful for doing this.
Yeah, and of course that's the theme throughout the whole museum. I mean, you could argue that very little of that in that museum was particularly respectful at all. I mean, it's exploiting Jack Kevorkian's van and Gacy's little things like that, and it just sort of, and that was one of the things that bothered me. It's like there's a way to frame these things that is respectful and interesting and and things like that.
Right.
And this really wasn't done. And I'll just add one other thing before I drop it, was that one of the things that was on display was a shrunken head. And I happen to know a lot about shrunken heads. I've held a real one in my hand, which is kind of a creepy experience. And we did a show on that, on Squaring the Strange. And it was presented as a real shrunken head. And I guarantee you it was not a real shrunken head.
Yeah.
That was fake. What?
What? No, there's nothing fake there. Everything. There's nothing fake. Come on now. All right, let's move on. That was good. That was good. A nice little rundown here. All right, from Oscar. Oscar asks, do you know any historian who has studied how dreams, visions have shaped history? For example, Constantine's dream convinced him to adopt Christianity as Rome's official religion. That's a question for you.
That's a good question, and I'm not coming up with how dreams and visions have shaped history. I mean, that wouldn't be a skeptical topic necessarily. I mean, it certainly could be, but I'm trying to think of who's done stuff on. I mean, that's more of a historian.
Right.
And maybe a psychological thing. So I'm trying to think. I only know a handful of historians. I mean, Brian Regal has done great stuff. He did stuff on the Jersey Devil. Kenny Fader, archaeology. It's a good question, but I don't.
Yeah.
I'm not thinking of anybody offhand who's really done research on how dreams or visions have shaped history per se. It's a fascinating topic, but
that's I've never really thought about that line of possible historic kind of influence, because I guess, I mean, if we're talking like ancient I'm gonna sound like such a noob, ancient times, where
the olden days
you
when you were just a young kid,
when they would talk about prophetic dreams, or I dreamed last night and this would influence, and how many stories and tales have we heard where dreams have played a part in it. That's an interesting topic to get into. It's I don't know if I can get into that, but I think somebody should get into it.
I'm sure someone's done stuff on it. Off the top of my head, I can't think of any historians, but I'll give it some thought.
Okay. All right. Let's move on here. Jay Nice or Jay Menice. Is there a witchcraft exhibit at Zach's museum? We got a call about it at work. What were your thoughts on it?
So witchcraft.
They're in the basement, which we did not get to go to. I know that's where he has like a pentagram set up on the floor, and that's where, like, during one of his specials, they had some kind of witch or an alleged witch come down and do some kind of ceremonies. But I think as for an exhibit,
I don't think so, which is odd given that he had stuff from the Titanic and and random dolls on the shelves. You'd think that would be a glaring oversight, but I can't think of any specific witchcraft. I mean, I'm sure there was, but usually if so, it would have been within the frame of, like, Satanism or something like that, and of course conflating the two,
right? Because
why wouldn't you?
Yeah, I mean, it usually happens.
I mean, whenever he goes to a demon, then there you go.
All right. Let me see. Oh, got that. this is a statement. That's also meaning that you expect Zach to be a good person, and personally, I don't think that's setting the bar high. We had a discussion about this on your show, so I'm not going to get into it about his more like showman personality, showman side, like circus and like the P.T. Barnum kind of aspect of it. So I won't go into that here because we did that for your show, and please go and listen to Scoring the Strange, and you'll get.
Yeah, I will just add that one of the last things you see on the museum is a giant portrait of P.T. Barnum.
Yes, which tells you everything you need to know.
Which is very telling to me. I mean, when you remember that he was a showman and his aphorism was "a sucker born every minute." I got no hate for Barnum. I mean, he did amazing sideshows. I mean, he was an influential figure at the time, but he was by no means a scientist or a paranormal investigator or researcher. He was a sensational mystery mongering con man showman, and proud of it. So it fit in perfectly.
And we can see where Zach gets it from. I mean,
right,
and go listen to Scoring the Strange, the last episode, and you'll learn, you'll get some insight where about that. So I'm going to leave it at that. Next question, last question I have. So if you guys have questions, we still got about half hour or so. So if you got questions, put them in the chat room so I can get to them. So John without an H says, how can one balance skepticism with enjoying and respecting folklore, especially stories that are tied to certain cultures or to people who find solace in certain folklore spiritual beliefs? I mean, before I know you're going to launch into a long thing because this is your area. So let me say,
you're the reason the last show was 4 hours long, dude, not me.
Susan Gerbic. Anyway, I love you, Susan, if you're watching. So the balanced skepticism with enjoying and respecting the folklore. I don't see what the problem here is. And maybe that's just me. You can respect the story. You can enjoy the story and where the story came from, how it evolved over time. And for me, it's always like I always bring up Scooby-Doo. I love solving that mystery. I love going into the research and seeing where this mystery or this legend come from. And my skepticism makes me question that. And not just, I can take that story, I can suspend my disbelief because I do it all the time. Every time I watch freaking Star Wars, I think I have the Force. So I can totally do it. So I listen to the ghost stories and legends. And yes, I enjoy them. I thoroughly enjoy the story. But then I can come back and I get that extra enjoyment because now I can look into the history. Where did it come from? And I get excited like, oh, I didn't know that. Oh, I didn't know that about this person. I didn't know this person was involved. And you just go through and it takes you down so many paths. It's more fun to have that balance of skepticism and folklore with these stories than it is to just blindly believe, I think. And I come from that place where I blindly believed this shit. So I understand it. I can relate to it. And I can say, I think it's better on this side. So with that, turn it over to you so you can give a better answer.
Well, I don't know if it's a better answer. I generally agree with that, although it's an interesting point and it deserves a bit of a deeper dig because traditionally skepticism and folklore have not necessarily been in the same field. And so by that, I mean that that when I'm with my folklore colleagues at conferences or whatever else, part of folklore is not caring really whether a belief is true. It's just not relevant. And this is part of folklore training. Is the main interest to folklorists of a legend or rumor or story or belief is how is it transmitted? How does it change from one person to another? How does it change from generation to generation? How, if it's an urban legend, for example, if it's an urban legend that's told in 1995 Mexico City, how is that same legend different than it's told in Boston in 2005? For example, The Vanishing Hitchhiker or La Llorona. I talked about one of my books. So for folklorists, the question of whether a belief is true or not isn't really relevant. It's not. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. It's not. That's not important. That's not really. I don't want to say it's not interesting to people, but it's not. It's not something that folklorists traditionally spend much time thinking about or concerning themselves about. Partly because oftentimes, there's a couple reasons. One is that it can be very difficult to pinpoint the origin of a given story. It can be almost impossible. So, I mean, there are some exceptions. The chupacabra would be one example. There's folklore, the black dog folklore. There's the Pied Piper of Hamelin. There's things like that. But for example, if the question is what is the origin of Cinderella, we can tell you when that was first recorded, and we can tell you how it changed by different authors and different publishers, different tellers. But there's no single person. You're not going to find Cinderella was first told, by a guy named John in 1444. One exception to that, by the way, and I don't want to get too off topic, is something like Slender Man, where Slender Man, because and Slender Man and the Chupacabra are sort of two examples of modern folkloric entities to which we can actually, very unusually in folklore, find a precise date and originator of the story. But for the most part, these are legends. They're told all over the world. They change this and that and the other. So it's a fruitless task trying to find the origin, because good luck with that. And some people spend their entire careers doing that. The second reason why oftentimes folklorists don't spend much time working on skepticism, and that by skepticism I'm talking about again trying to parse out what's true and what's false, is that of course it puts them in a somewhat awkward position of being arbiters of truth. Mm-hmm. And folklorists, they don't like to say, well, I'm a folklorist and your belief is bullshit. This is not a position that most academics want to take or have any interest in taking, for reasons you can understand, right? Because you don't want to say, I have a PhD in folklore or medieval studies, and I'm here to tell you that your cherished religious belief is wrong. Because number one, that's offensive. Number two, it's right. Xenophobic and racist, and potentially there's lots of problems with it. So that's one reason why oftentimes there's this gap between the two. And what I've tried to do with my work is trying to bridge that and say, okay, yes, we can respect the beliefs. We can respect beliefs about, for example, the afterlife. If someone comes to me and says, for example, that they believe that their dead grandmother is looking out for them and there's an angel behind them, and I ask why, and they say, well, because I find pennies on the ground, and my grandmother always used to give me a shiny penny whenever I saw her, or whatever it is. I'm not going to spend an hour explaining to her why that's probably not evidence.
Right.
Grandma, right. It's not worth it to me. It's not going to do any good. It's going to make me look bad. It's not useful. It's not. I mean, I can do that, but it's not productive. It doing that doesn't do it.
That is an example of picking your battle.
Yeah.
There's no reason. There's no win.
There's no benefit to it.
Right.
There's no reason in the world to do that. Now, again, not to go too far off, but I mean, there are times when that might be useful, right? So if for example, someone comes to me and they believe they've been cursed, and I've talked about this in the show before. Someone says they believe there's a demon in their house, or they've been cursed by the evil eye, or witchcraft beliefs. You could argue, and I would argue, that in these cases, it is our ethical obligation as skeptics and as researchers to try and mitigate that and say, look, I know you're scared. I know you're freaking out. There's probably not a ghost in your house. I'm not saying Catholicism is wrong. I'm not saying you're stupid. I'm saying that this particular belief is hurting you. And Kenny and I and others and folklorists have a background and knowledge base that may be able to help you navigate your way out of this.
Right.
So anyway, I don't want to turn this into a monologue, but that's sort of what I would say.
That's a good point. I love that point, and that's something that I've stressed before on this show, and I will continue to stress that, because usually I will stay quiet. If people are just talking and having conversations, I'll stay quiet. But if something like that comes up where it could potentially harm somebody, either like immediately or down the road, yes, I think we have an obligation to speak up, and I definitely, absolutely will speak up. And doesn't matter. I mean, I'm going to speak up and say, look, this, I might have information. Here's the information. Think about it. Just think about it. That's all. Don't want to push, but think about it. But yeah, I agree with you. I totally agree with you on that. I'm going to jump to Jim. Dr. Jim has a follow-up to John. Does this relate to the cargo cult? So skepticism balanced with respecting folklore, especially. So I don't know. I don't. So cargo cult, as I understand it, is basically like the classic explanation for that is when during, I don't know which war, but there was a U.S. camp and they were having supplies dropped off, and it would come from airplanes. They would airdrop in, and like the base had a tower, so the radio tower would call in and all this stuff. So they would go through the proper procedures to get more supplies. And the indigenous, or not indigenous, native people, I don't know if I'm saying this right, nobody hate me, the people that live there,
you're doing good so far.
Okay, the original people that lived in that land that we took over,
indigenous is fine, you can use that.
All right, would see this and see the routines going on, and after the base packed up and left, they had this idea, this again tribal knowledge, that maybe if we did the same thing, the same routines, that we would get gifts from the sky, and they would follow it. That's my basic understanding of it.
I think in a nutshell, that's basically a good overview. I know a little bit about it. One of my co-authors, Bob Bartholomew, who, by the way, he's recently done a lot of stuff on Havana syndrome. He's done stuff on the cargo cults. It's a complex thing, and there's lots of nuances. It seems that some of the cargo cult stories have been a bit overblown. So there's a grain of truth to it, but anyway, it's a rabbit hole. But,
okay.
In a nutshell, that's so. I would say, again, I didn't make the connection between the original question, but I think that might be it.
Yeah, I don't know if that is considered folklore.
Well,
it's more.
Yeah, I mean, maybe I don't sociology, know. Folklore. I mean, yeah,
it's more like a learned behavior that turns into belief. Maybe, and I'm just.
You're still stuck in indigenous. That's okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Like
Pacific Islanders.
That's the issue that I face, I think, with when I start broadening the subject matter that I deal with, is that I don't always know the terms to use. And luckily with this, when I do this show and I have a guest on that talks about something that I'm not familiar with, I mean, the only thing to do is to stay as humble as possible and just say, look, I don't know the proper term for this anymore. I don't know what I'm supposed to say or what I'm allowed to say, and leave it up to the other person to tell me, what can I say?
Wise move.
Why? Yes. Because I mean, there's never intent to offend anyone except Zach. I mean, but it happens, and it's genuinely, I don't mean to. So I always would try to make that clear, and I talk a lot, so that's what I do. All right. So another question here. Let's see. That's a question I got done. We got, we're still doing good on time. Here's a question. I think, I'm not sure, but I think this might be Coral.
I suspect.
Because
if you read it carefully, you can hear a faint Canadian accent in there.
Maybe. I think I hear it, eh? When you guys travel, do you investigate supposed haunted hotels? Would you consider the Fort Garry Hotel, supposedly one of Canada's most haunted hotels, if you come through Winnipeg? See, Winnipeg is my clue here. That I think it's Coral, but I don't know about this. I don't think I've heard about this particular hotel. But when I investigate, I don't know why the quotes are there, but I mean, I do investigate, and if I can, yes, I will. I definitely will investigate anything that has something to investigate. And there's always, at least on my part, and I definitely have learned this from you. I always check out the stories beforehand to make sure that there is actually something to investigate. Like if there's stories and they're just baseless and there's nothing to really test, and I can't really do anything except sit there and just wait for something to happen, it's not always worth the time and money to get out there and do that. There has to be something worthwhile to go out there. But if there is, I definitely will. When it comes to investigating this stuff, I do what I do, and everything that I learned. I will certainly test testable claims and look at whatever alleged evidence is presented too, pictures, videos, what have you, and give my opinion and see if I can recreate them. And that's always the thing that really interests me, when there's a weird picture or video and I know I can recreate it, but I have to be there to recreate it because of certain conditions and stuff. So I would love it. And if I ever find myself in Winnipeg, we're going to hang out, first of all, Coral. And yes, I would definitely check it out if there's something worthwhile.
Yeah, I would, I've investigated maybe a couple dozen haunted hotels over the years. There's been a couple prominent ones, including the Myrtles Plantation in Louisiana, that I investigated. I just haven't written it up. I mean, in my files behind me, I've got photos and interviews and this and that. I just haven't had the time. I've been doing less of that in recent years, partly just because the preparation it takes, right? And so, like Kenny was saying, if I'm going to be in some city, like for example, I was in Boston last week. And I could have spent a little bit of time, finding out where's the most haunted hotel in Boston. I mean, that might be kind of interesting and fun. But the thing is that in order to do a substantive investigation, it takes work. You gotta research it. You gotta dig up stuff. You have to. In some cases, you may spend hours or days, or maybe even weeks, gathering just enough information to know what the hell to do there. So, my position is that if you just want to go to a locally haunted place and have fun, say, "Oh, look at me, I'm in front of this haunted place," knock yourself out. I mean, that's all well and good, but it's almost like, what's the point, right? I mean, anybody can do that. If you're going to make something out of it, if you're going to turn it into investigation, if you're going to actually do research and take it seriously, which is what Kenny and I do, that takes time and effort. And sometimes I don't have 12 hours to spend doing research and digging up stuff in order to establish what the claims are and looking for photographs and videos. And in order to sift through all that, pull out some testable claims, think about how you might test them and so on. So
right.
It's like, yeah, so I just want to go to sleep.
It really is. I mean, it's not, I think this is one of the biggest, and there's quite a few, but biggest misconceptions about investigating these things is that, oh, we can look at one video or one TV show and say, oh, we're going to go to that place. And we just get up and go and we spend the night and boom, there you go. It's not like that. It's minimum, I would say, this is just a guess, 2 weeks at minimum. And like you said, it's like you have to research the stories. What stories are associated with this place? Now we have to get into the stories. And that leads to history and this person. And did they really stay there? And we have to look at this and that. And you go down so many paths that it takes a long time. Every article that I write takes weeks to do because I'm constantly checking up not only like contacts to get information, but I'm looking into different leads of, is this rumor really true? Is this story really true? Did this person really stay there? Did this person say this? What book was quoted?
Right.
and holy shit, now I got to get that book
Yeah.
or get onto like Google Scholar and look up that book and see the page. So there's so much involved with it. Every video that I do takes weeks to do because of the same thing. I'm still tracking down information and leads and people. So it's not a thing that we can just do like that. It takes a lot of time.
That's inherent in what we do. And it's like, the thing to keep in mind is there's this inequity, because if we didn't care whether what we're saying is true or not, it doesn't matter.
Right.
Hey, I'll meet you up there. So we'll do this thing. We'll do a bunch of EVPs. We'll take photos. It'll be, anybody can do that. Any half-assed local ghost hunting group can go out to some location, check in for the night, walk around midnight, take a bunch of photos until 3 a.m, and then that's all well and good. That's not investigation. So the sorts of effort and quality that we put into it, that's what you have to do this job right. If you don't want to do the job right, that's fine, but then don't call it investigation.
Right. And I've said this many times, and I continue to say it. The vast majority of ghost investigations done by ghost hunting groups are not investigations.
Yeah.
They are stakeouts, they're hangouts,
they're anomaly hunting with their buddies.
Yeah. They're not investigations because they're not taking it seriously. They're not really paying attention. There was a podcast earlier today that came on, and I'm not trashing the guy that runs the podcast, but the question, the question of the podcast, because he does like a question of the day kind of thing, was doing live streams during your investigation. Is it worth it? And like, I only did one comment going, why? Like, why are you
possible
doing
value is this other than publicity?
Yes. Like,
are you trying to solve a mystery? Or are you trying to get on?
Exactly.
What are we doing here?
Turn the fucking camera off, pay attention to what you're fucking doing, and solve the mystery. That's your job. But
amen, brother.
That's just us. Keep drinking. All right. Let's see. Now I have 2 requests here, or a question. This is I don't know if I'm going to do this. Will you sing happy birthday to John? John's a good friend. He's a good guy. You know what? I'll do this later on my own. I will send you a video, Melissa, and I'll sing happy birthday to John, and do it in grand thing. I have to send you your birthday video too. I still have to do that because I didn't do that yet because I'm lazy. I'm just busy. I'm not lazy. Shut up.
You're not like you may be a lot of things. I wouldn't call you lazy.
No, I'm not. No, I'm not lazy. Sometimes I'm lazy. Honestly, like Donna has been on vacation all this week, and like sometimes I go to work, I plan out a whole bunch of shit. I write down notes like, I got to do this, and I get home and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to play my Lego Star Wars game, and I don't give a shit what anyone thinks. And I sit and waste hours. But that's once in a while. That's not all.
I got a big stack of New Yorker magazines to get to, but whatever. You do your Legos.
Yeah, All right. Last question here that I have. Jim Clausen. Dr. Jim, recent investigate. What's your plan for Fort Mifflin? So next month, I'm going to Fort Mifflin with a group from North Carolina. It's John without an H and a bunch of it's not, I wouldn't call them a ghost hunting group because they are very skeptical about it. They do have like a nice blend. They have some ghost hunters, but they have a very skeptical attitude, especially John without an H. Very skeptical, very, very intelligent young man. And Dr. Jim's going to go with them. So my plan for Fort Mifflin is basically I am a tag along. I'm not like running an investigation. I'm not doing anything. I am basically there as what's the resident skeptic, just to if people have questions or ideas and they want to bounce them off me, I will address them. I'll answer the questions to the best of my ability. I will talk about the equipment being used, if any, and explain exactly how it works. And if there's experiments people want to do, I will comment. I'll put my input in and say, you know what, you probably don't want to do this way, or you want to add this control over here. You want to be mindful of this and this. So I'll be doing a lot of that.
You'll be trying to bring some science and scientific rigor to the proceedings.
Mhm.
Admirable.
And it is a place I know well. Fort Mifflin is it's only about a half-hour drive from me. I've been there many, many times. I know some of the staff that work there. I'm well versed in the history. I've written about the place a couple times. And
Didn't you do a test there? There was
a
some place
test?
where you hid something.
No, that's a different mansion.
Okay, all right.
That's still going.
Okay.
I'm actually, I was waiting for someone. There was a ghost hunter from Canada that was coming down and doing like this big live broadcast investigation thing. And I think he did it. I was waiting for that to get done because he's a friend of mine. So I'm not being mean, but I was egging him on going, hey, there's a test, $500 cash American because he's from Canada.
That's right. Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's a lot of money. I was like, it's still there. It's still going. You can find it, if you can do what you say you can do. So I think we're actually going to bring that to a close because it's just no one can do it. And it's kind of like the Randy challenge. It's been going on for a couple of years now. I think we're almost at 5 years. It's been going, and no one has even come close to being able to fulfill that. So, but yeah, I think that's it. Do I have any more questions? Oh, I have one. Oh, I have two. Hold on. I got to put my glasses on so I can see the writing because I'm old. Are you at least that dogs? Is that for me? I guess. Yes. I only have one dog. We do have two dogs. So Chewy is here. I am feeding her every morning. Rummy is up with my father-in-law. I'm actually going up tomorrow morning to pick her up and bring her back. So yes, the dogs are
Even
fed.
though Donna's gone, the dogs are being fed. It's okay.
Yes, that's the important thing. As long as everyone's fed, I don't care about anything else. And last, from my buddy Tim Vickers. How you doing, buddy? Can you give a detailed report of the difference or variance of good energy and bad energy? Oh, shut up, Tim. I think that's more of a joke. Good energy. Oh my God. So I'm going to address this, Tim, because you're a dick, and I'm going to address it. I hate when people use this metaphysical version of this term. There is not good or bad. Energy is just energy, and the scientific versions of energy are just that. There are definitions out there. You can learn about them. The metaphysical version where you walk into a room and feel evil energy is bullshit. You can get contextual cues from the environment and maybe line them up with things you've seen in horror movies or something like that and think, oh, this is probably a bad place. But that's not bad energy. That is just contextual cues. That's watching too many horror movies.
You're thinking of quantum.
Quantum. If you just put quantum in it, it's science. Trust me. All right. So after that, we're good. And we're at the end of the show. So that's good. This was actually fun. I like this. This is I might actually make this a thing where I bring on guests that I've had already and just say, hey, we're going to do an open mic night. We're just going to do, because I've gotten to the format where the first hour, like, we talk, when we talk, I ask you the questions. We do it like an interview style interview, and everyone gets to know the guest. And then the second hour is open to questions from everyone else. But I like this where we can just do a open mic night and you can take on some of the questions because you got better information than I do. Anyway. All right. If anyone is not just sick of you by now, where can people find you or find more of your bullshit? Work.
Yeah.
Work.
I know, believe me. So yes, Squaring the Strange would be an obvious place for the podcast that I do with Celestia and Pasquale. And I have a new book which Kenny is holding up, America the Fearful. It's my 13th book, I believe. It's not about ghosts. It's not about monsters. It is about boogeymen and folklore and media literacy and things like that. And I'll actually be giving a talk on checks calendar on the 23rd, which is the next Thursday night. It's free, but you need to sign up. So if you go to my Facebook page, you can find it. And I'll be giving a talk on social boogeymen and phantom fears and things like that, which is based somewhat on my book. I'm around and about, and I'm doing stuff for Skeptical Inquirer magazine, and I'm on Twitter and all the usual places.
I like how, because I didn't notice this at the time, I only noticed this like an hour before the show, is that I started paging through this because I haven't had a chance to sit down and read it yet.
No, you don't read my stuff. I get it. That's cool.
Fuck your stuff. No, honestly, I mean, I really love your work. It's so thorough, and I'm not blowing smoke up your ass. I really do like it. It's very detailed, and this is honestly what I model, what I do after. I mean, I really you have been a mentor to me for years, and I really appreciate what you do for me and the work that you do. But aside from kissing your ass, I paged through it. I was like, oh, look at this. It's an index card, and I know you're very old school. You are as old school as I am, but actually more so because you have index cards in here. And on the back, I'm just going to read this. It says it's a sticker that says original index card used to index America the Fearful, and it's got your notes, handwritten notes on it that you go. Why do you use index cards? What is that about?
That's how you index books, Kenny. As soon as you write one, I'll help you out with it.
I use tabs. I use like little flags.
Nope.
Or and I know this is blasphemy or sacrilegious, but I actually write in my books.
I do too.
Okay. All right. I know like Tim Binga up at CSI up in Buffalo. When I said that to him, he just like
he's a librarian. I write in all my books.
His face went white, his jaw dropped, like sweat beaded up on his forehead. Like, what do you mean you write in them? Like, dude, I write, I highlight, I tag them, I do everything. I
write stuff in the margins. Yeah, that's how you know it's a good book.
Yeah, like if it's really shit, I write like this is shit across the page.
Big arrow.
I have 2 books that I actually stabbed. Because they were so bad. I put it on the desk, took out my knife from my pocket,
wow,
bam, right in the middle. I'm like, I am not reading the rest of this book. Fuck
Anger
this
issues.
book. A little bit. It was just so bad. All right, so everyone knows how to get in touch with Ben. Definitely go see or go listen to Scoring the Strange, especially the last episode, which I get to have a chance to be on, which I love. I'm going for that record. I don't know if I have it yet, but I want the record of the most guest appearances.
Either you or our Eric Myers, I think, is probably neck and neck at this point.
All right.
Given that he's unfortunately dead, I think you're probably going to win.
Yeah, unfortunately, yes. I'm definitely going to surpass him, but it was an honor. It's definitely an honor. But yeah, check it out with me and Susan, and we talk about our experiences. Because Susan and I, we went years ago. I think in 2018, we went to Zach's museum. So we were comparing notes from then and now with Ben and everyone else that went. So really, really good fun. All right, so let me go over my announcements. You're going to stick around. You're not going anywhere, bitch. You're going to stay right here. Let's see. For the announcements, it's real simple. Saturdays at 8 p.m. Eastern, I do a show called Three Tortured Souls with Tim Vickers and Dave Schumacher. And tomorrow is actually an open mic night. So every 4th show we do in our rotation, we do an open mic night. So you can ask us questions and then get perspectives from me and then Tim and Dave. So definitely 3 different perspectives. It's a lot of fun. July 16th and 17th is Skeptical Virtual Conference. I'm going to be speaking on July 16th. I don't know what time, but if you want more information, just look up Skeptical and you can sign up. I think it's $20. Excuse me, for signing up for the conference. Don't quote me on that, but it's pretty cheap and you can get all the lectures. I think it's worth it. So check it out. July 23rd, I will be at the Para-Unity Conference. It's a paranormal conference in Woodbridge, New Jersey. And I can brag that I am the only skeptic that's allowed to sit up there, which is really nice. It took me a while to get in, but I know the guy that organizes it, and really nice. We talked. We had a little rough rough time there where he wasn't sure, but I want to.
The lawyers worked it out, right?
Yeah, the lawyers worked it out. But I'll be there. I'll be set up with my booth, and then Donna will be there with her Lucky Tiki Creations. I'm like pointing over here like she's actually sitting there, but she's not. August 19th to 21st, I will be in Gettysburg for the Gettysburg Battlefield Bash, along with my 3 Tortured Souls buddies, Tim and Dave. We're going to be set up there. It's a long weekend. It's probably one of the most fun conferences I ever go to, because it's a long weekend. It's 3 days, and it's during the day I get to have fun with my skepticism and paranormal stuff, but at night there's always a party, and we have a lot of fun. So check it out. If you can make it out there, come out. I know JD is going to come out. He's going to hang out with us one of the days. October 20th to 23rd is SciCon in Las Vegas, Nevada. I will be there speaking on Friday. It's the first time I'm taking the big stage, so I gotta be really drunk. No, I'm kidding. Anyone watching from SciCon, I'm totally kidding.
Okay.
But no, I'm actually going to do a talk, which I've been working on. It's going to be bridging the gap between some, in parentheses, some believers and skeptics, and how to work together to get along, build a relationship, and work together. So I'm hoping it's good, because I think I'm really good at that. I've been told I'm good at that. I don't know if I really am, but we'll see.
I would say so.
If I get booed off stage, then I'm probably not good at it. So we'll see. But other than that, I want to give a shout out to my Patreons. I'm going to put that up there. And if you're interested, I'm trying to get everything here. I need Donna here. So Patreon, which is up there in that corner. If you want to support the show, feel free. Please do it. It helps me keep this show going. It helps StreamYard. Honestly, it all goes to StreamYard every year when this subscription comes up. It just pays for that so that I can keep doing the show in an awesome way. Because StreamYard is actually really freaking awesome. I love this format. And I'm not a they don't sponsor this, but it really is cool. I really love them. So with that, I think we're good. John Michael said he's going to be at Gettysburg too. Good. It'll be good to see. Oh, and I'm getting, wow. I'm going to totally blame Ben for this. I don't use index cards at all. I use notebooks. I have notebooks full of all my notes. I don't use index cards.
Maybe
you should actually use index cards. What do you use them for? Do you actually put them in the book?
Seriously, we just went through this. Were you paying attention?
No, obviously not. I'm reading this. What is this? So you're talking about fallacy, representation.
Everybody, this is the episode in which Kenny learns how to use index cards and what they are.
This is so old school. Do you use a typewriter too? Oh man! All right, Joe. No, I've never used it. I have index cards, but I think they're still in the plastic.
The index card.
Sorry,
what topic do you have?
So I have. It says fallacy.
All right, so look in the index.
Look in the index. Is this what you use it for? Really? The index? That's actually, I get it. So all the page numbers, look at the light bulbs lighting up. It's lighting up really fast. So you write down fallacy, and then all the page numbers where you actually use fallacy. Look fallacy. I don't see it. Where is it? It's not in here.
It is. Look at the first word. You know what? When you finish your book,
representation.
That'll be. I'll
wait. All right. So representate. I can't even say this fucking word.
Representativeness.
That's it. All right. So I have that versus collective. Fallacy 15. All right. So it's all the work. Okay. All the times that you've used it.
That's literally the index card I used to index the book.
All right. So see, I learned something. That's actually helpful. Fuck. God damn it, Bradford. Now I got to get some index cards.
They're cheap. You can get them at Target for like 20 cents.
Yeah. I think I'm pretty sure I have like 2 or 3 packs that are still in the plastic.
You know the first step, right? Finish
No.
the book. This is
Yeah. I'm getting there. I keep saying that, but I do work on it every now and then, but I get distracted easily. I really have that problem, because that whole full-time job. Well, actually, better than anyone, because you do a full-time job. You're getting like your PhDs out your ass, and you still pump out a book like every year. Jesus, I think I'm busy. All right. Anyway, let's wrap it up. Thank you everyone for hanging out. I appreciate it. You spending your Friday night with us. I hope you learned something tonight. I hope you got some good information. It was good questions. I appreciate every one of them. JD, I know you asked a question. If you're still listening, I know you had a question about the video. I'm going to try and get to it. I'll get to it later because I have to find the video and actually go through it, and then I'll give you an opinion. Sorry I didn't get to it during the show. But otherwise, I appreciate everyone. Have a good weekend. And remember, never stop learning. And I will see you next week. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.